Rumor has it, baby, Toni Braxton is still carrying the weight of what went down with Oprah. It was not just a public takedown on national TV. It felt like a full-blown career ambush. And now? Word is Toni is ready to speak her truth, possibly shining a fresh light on Oprah's role in the fallout. Let's just say, Toni might be done staying silent, and she is not holding back this time. Absolutely. Toni Braxton's reaction to that moment was one of pure disbelief. She had always held Oprah Winfrey in the highest regard. Oprah was not just a famous talk show host or media mogul to Toni. She was a figure she deeply admired and looked up to as a role model. For years, Toni had believed Oprah was someone who could be trusted to uplift her, especially during difficult times. So when she appeared on Oprah's show to openly discuss her financial struggles, Toni expected compassion and understanding. Instead, what she experienced was something far different, something more like public humiliation than support. The moment that stands out the most in Toni's memory is when Oprah said to her on national television, "I heard you have Gucci flatware. I'm Oprah Winfrey, and even I don't have Gucci flatware." Think about that for a moment. Toni was stunned by the comment, not only because it was a strange thing to bring up during such a serious conversation, but also because Toni had no idea that Gucci even made flatware. She was caught completely off guard. To Toni, this was not just a question or a curious observation. It was a judgment wrapped in a tone that felt condescending and dismissive. What made this even more hurtful was the fact that Oprah's lack of Gucci flatware was a deliberate choice, not a result of financial hardship. Oprah, with all her wealth and influence, simply chose not to buy Gucci flatware. It was not about necessity, but preference. So when Oprah made that comment to Toni, it came off as if she was implying Toni was irresponsible or careless with her money just because she had a luxury item Oprah herself didn't own. Toni felt belittled by this, like she was being put on the spot and made to feel small. Really, really small. Toni described this moment as a turning point, not just in that interview, but in her entire career. She said it was a defining experience that completely changed how the public saw her. Before that, Toni was respected as a powerful, successful artist who had won multiple Grammys and sold millions of records. After that, the conversation shifted. Instead of focusing on the unfair contract deals and financial hardships that had led to her bankruptcy, people started talking about her spending habits, painting a picture of her as reckless with money. The public began to judge her not as a victim of an exploitative system, but as someone who was careless and extravagant. This wasn't just an awkward interview or a small misunderstanding. For Toni, it was damaging on a deep, personal level. She felt betrayed by someone she had admired and trusted. It wasn't just about the words Oprah said. It was about the tone, the attitude, and the way it made Toni look in front of millions of viewers. That moment haunted her for years afterward. It overshadowed her achievements and became part of the narrative about her career and financial troubles. The interview also had a ripple effect beyond just Toni's public image. It influenced how the music industry and fans viewed artist compensation and financial struggles. Instead of having an honest conversation about how unfair contracts leave artists vulnerable, the focus was shifted to blaming Toni for her problems. It distracted people from the real issue, the exploitative nature of some record deals that force artists to cover their own expenses and pay back advances, leaving them in debt despite their success. Toni's story is a powerful example of how public figures, especially Black women, can be unfairly judged and shamed in the media, even by those they respect. Her experience with Oprah highlights a painful reality. Sometimes those who appear to be allies can unintentionally, or even intentionally, perpetuate harmful stereotypes and misunderstandings. In the end, Toni's feelings of betrayal are completely understandable. She opened up about her struggles expecting support, but instead felt torn down. That experience still weighs on her, and many believe she deserves a genuine apology, not just for the words spoken, but for the way it affected her career and reputation. It's a reminder that behind every public story, there is a human being who feels the impact of those words deeply. This moment with Oprah was not just a media blunder. It was a defining incident that shaped how Toni Braxton's story has been told and remembered. It shows how important it is for people in positions of power and influence to handle sensitive topics with care and empathy. especially when dealing with individuals who have already faced immense struggles. One mini Toni had been struggling. She was vulnerable. That could have been a moment of compassion from someone she held in high regard. But instead, she felt humiliated. That sting never left her. And according to insiders, Toni still carries that hurt. The resentment is quiet, but it is real. And honestly, can you blame her? For context, Toni Braxton, despite selling over $170 million worth of music for her label, went through multiple bankruptcies. That should have sparked a conversation about artist exploitation, not judgment over luxury silverware. But Oprah's public call-out changed the narrative, and possibly the course of Toni's career. Toni was practically printing money for her label, Arista LaFace, raking in millions. Yet somehow, she was walking away with less than 35 cents per album. Let that sink in. We are talking about a Grammy-winning powerhouse who had sold over 70 million records worldwide, and still, her take-home pay was shockingly low. It is wild when you think about it. This was not just any artist. Toni Braxton was a certified star. Her journey began in the late 80s, singing alongside her sisters as part of the Braxtons. But once she went solo, everything changed. Her self-titled debut album, Toni Braxton, dropped in 1993 and took off like a rocket, soaring to #1 on the Billboard 200 and selling over 10 million copies. She had the voice, the sales, the accolades, but not the financial rewards to match. Her situation revealed just how broken the music industry could be, especially when it came to how labels treated their most successful artists. Toni's debut album wasn't just a hit, it was a movement. With chart toppers like Breathe Again and Another Sad Love Song, the album soared, thanks in part to legendary producers Babyface and Antonio L.A. Reid. Then came her follow-up, Secrets, and that iconic heartbreak anthem, Unbreak My Heart. That single alone sold 10 million copies worldwide, solidifying her place in music history as the voice behind one of the most successful songs ever released. Over the course of her career, Toni released 9 studio albums, the latest dropping in 2020, and every one of them made noise. Which is exactly why it never made sense that someone with her track record was making under 35 cents per album. The numbers just did not add up. Eventually, Toni had enough. She filed a lawsuit against her label, calling out the unfairness in her contract. And just 8 weeks after filing that lawsuit in January 1998, she also filed for bankruptcy. Later on, she opened up about the ugly truth behind it all. Her royalties totaled under $2,000, yes, less than $2,000, despite all her success. To make it worse, she was also expected to repay her label for everything from clothes and travel to studio time and music video expenses. Things got so bad that she even faced accusations of fraud. At one point, she was alleged to have transferred around $53,000 to her ex-husband, Kerry Lewis, supposedly to shield it from creditors during her bankruptcy case. It painted a painful picture, a global superstar fighting just to stay afloat, while the industry pocketed the lion's share of her earnings. Sadly, in 2010, Toni Braxton found herself filing for bankruptcy once more. But this time, the cause was not financial mismanagement, it was her health. She had been diagnosed with microvascular angina, and shortly after, lupus. Both conditions were serious and unpredictable, forcing her to step back from the stage and cancel a major, money-making Las Vegas residency. A lot of people overlook the toll that kind of diagnosis takes, not just on your body, but on your career and income. To the outside world, it might have looked like another financial stumble, but behind the scenes, it was about survival. Toni was battling life-threatening illnesses, and stepping away from performing was not a choice. It was a necessity. And that is the part many people do not fully grasp. Her situation was not just about numbers. It was about navigating a brutal industry while facing personal health crises that would shake anyone to the core. Toni explained that she had to fund her own shows, and the costs were staggering. From the lighting and the band to hotel rooms and staff salaries, every single expense came out of her pocket. Most fans only see the glamorous final product, but behind the curtain, the artist carries the financial burden. And after everything is paid for, sometimes there is little to nothing left over. Then came more challenges. In 2019, the IRS filed a lien against her on December 4th, claiming she owed $340,252.99 in back taxes for the year 2017. Just days later, the California Franchise Tax Board followed suit, slapping her with another lien, this time for $164,154.64. Combined, she was looking at nearly $500,000 in unpaid taxes. During this overwhelming time, Toni decided to speak publicly about her struggles. She turned to Oprah, hoping the interview would help clear the air and humanize her financial issues. She wanted people to understand the harsh realities artists often face. But what she thought would be a supportive and eye-opening conversation quickly spiraled into something else. Instead of empathy, Toni felt judged, harshly. Oprah's line of questioning struck a nerve. She asked about luxury items like Gucci flatware and even a lion skin rug, questioning whether Toni genuinely believed she could afford to own 7 or 8 cars. Toni remembered Oprah saying, "I hear you have Gucci silverware. I'm Oprah Winfrey, and I don't have Gucci silverware." To Toni, it was deeply condescending and humiliating. What was meant to be a moment of vulnerability turned into one of shame. She later admitted that it was her publicist who encouraged her to do the interview, but looking back, she regretted it. Instead of clearing her name, she felt the interview magnified her struggles and added fuel to the public scrutiny, damaging her image even further. Toni did not hold back when she later spoke about how deeply hurt she was by Oprah's actions. She accused Oprah of putting on a public persona of being a humanitarian, but claimed that, behind the scenes, Oprah was only concerned about herself. Toni felt that the empathy Oprah was known for was nowhere to be found during their interview, and instead, she came across as harsh and dismissive. What stung even more was that Toni once held Oprah in the highest regard. She loved her, admired her, and truly looked up to her. So when Oprah, someone she respected deeply, essentially scolded her on national television, it left her stunned. Oprah's now infamous comment, "I hear you have Gucci flatware. I'm Oprah Winfrey and I don't too. Have Gucci flatware," was a turning point. Toni, caught off guard, even admitted she did not know Gucci made silverware. But what bothered her most was the insinuation that she was being irresponsible. Toni pointed out that the real issue was not affordability. Oprah simply chose not to buy Gucci flatware, while Toni did. To her, it was about personal choice, not recklessness. In that moment, Toni felt small. "This big," she said, holding her fingers close together. The humiliation was not just personal, it was public. And the pain came from the fact that the criticism came from someone she had admired and hoped would lift her up, not tear her down. Toni said that appearance on Oprah's show marked a major turning point in her career, but not in a good way. She felt that the interview not only humiliated her in front of millions, but also altered how people perceived her. From that moment on, the public's respect seemed to shift, and her professional reputation took a hit. To make things even worse, rumors began circulating that Oprah had done more than just ask uncomfortable questions on air. She allegedly went behind Toni's back and gave her record label a heads up. According to an insider, Toni was in the middle of renegotiating her contract with Layface Records while also dealing with bankruptcy. This was a sensitive time, especially considering she had already sold over 16 million records for the label. The source claimed that before the episode aired, Oprah contacted Layface and said something along the lines of, "Toni's on my show today. She plans to make you guys look bad, but I think it's unfair, so you might want to tune in." That call, if true, raised eyebrows. Instead of offering support to a struggling artist, Oprah was accused of protecting the label's image and possibly sabotaging Toni's attempt to share her truth. Naturally, Oprah faced backlash for what many called snake-like behavior. Some even said she was projecting her own insecurities onto Toni. It was a sharp contrast to Oprah's carefully curated image as a compassionate and empowering figure. The irony? This is the same woman who once claimed she stretched her budget by cutting off one leg of her pantyhose when it got a run, then wearing it mismatched with another. That frugality became part of her narrative. But in Toni's case, financial hardship was used against her. Toni opened up about how overwhelming the pressure was, not just from the industry, but from within her own family. While she was out, touring, recording, and fighting behind the scenes to keep her head above water, she was also carrying the financial weight of her family. Toni revealed that after their parents' divorce, her mother received very little support, and Toni stepped in without hesitation. She made sure their mom was taken care of, handling everything from car insurance to day-to-day needs. What made things harder was that, according to Toni, most of her siblings did not offer any help. The only one who occasionally stepped up was Tamar. Everyone else, she claimed, sat back and let Toni handle it all. And the moment they were involved in any capacity, like working on her team, Trina and Tawanda wanted to be paid, even though Toni was already stretched thin trying to keep everyone afloat. All of this makes Oprah's approach during that infamous interview even harder to stomach. Instead of offering compassion, or at least neutral curiosity, Oprah's tone seemed to reflect more of her own internal struggles with money and luxury. She had talked before about her early financial discomfort, how she would not buy a $49.95 flatware set from Crate & Barrel, and how she reused $3.99 lashes to save $125. She even admitted to making her own DIY Spanx from damaged pantyhose. To many fans, it felt like Oprah was punishing Toni for being brave enough to indulge in some luxury, even if it was modest in the grand scheme of things. Oprah's stories of financial humility might have been meant to inspire, but instead they exposed a kind of contradiction. She could honor her own frugality while shaming Toni for not being equally frugal, even though Toni's spending came during a time when she was making millions of dollars for her label. That disconnect is what led people to accuse Oprah of projecting. They felt she used her platform to judge instead of uplift, especially towards someone like Toni, who had not only earned her success, but also sacrificed so much to support her family. Gratitude may be Oprah's religion, but in that moment, fans believed